Now You See Me, Now You Don't topped the box office domestically and worldwide, while The Running Man struggled. Thanks for tuning in to this weekend's box office winners. Now before we dive in, make sure to like and subscribe so you never miss what movies are killing it at the box office. Now let's dive into the numbers. To start off, let's give a hand of applause to Lionsgate, who after a slew of underperformers and flops, the mini studio finally has a hit with Now You See Me, Now You Don't. This is the third film in the franchise and it made $21.3 million domestically and $54.2 million overseas, which included a great opening weekend in China where the film made $21.6 million. And to put this into perspective, this opening weekend in China makes it the third biggest opening weekend for a Hollywood film in China, only behind Jurassic World Rebirth and Mission Impossible The Final Reckoning's opening weekends. So overall, Now You See Me, Now You Don't made $75.5 million worldwide. Now, it's not all great news for Lionsgate though, as the film received a B+ cinema score, which is still good. However, it is lower than the first two Now You See Me films, which both received an A- cinema score. Now, it's also important to point out that even though the film opened at number 1 at the box office, it still opened lower than its two predecessor films. So it's going to be very important that this film has legs in order to reach the heights of $300 million, which both the previous films did. It's also interesting to see that female moviegoers elevated the film to number 1, as 54% of the audience was female. But now, let's take a look at the rest of the top 10. In second place was Paramount's The Running Man, which is such an interesting story because heading into the weekend, Paramount and other sources thought that the film would open to about $24 to $25 million. But when the Friday numbers kicked in, that number lowered to $17 to $19 million. And the film slightly missed that mark as it only made $17 million in its debut, but credible sources say that this number may slip to $16 million once the official numbers come in on Monday. Allied to its domestic opening, the film had a global opening of $28.2 million, which is quite disastrous for a film with a budget of $110 million. And this opening gives us two important findings. One is that Paramount is truly struggling, and while they are the frontrunners to buy Warner Bros. Discovery, this is clearly a sign that Paramount does not know how to market their films well. And there's a slight chance that they would run Warner Bros. To the ground if they were to purchase that iconic studio. And two, Glen Powell may not be the movie star that everyone thought he would be, as this film was solely his, and even though the film did receive a B+ cinema score, audiences just didn't think that the film was theater worthy. The film also skewed male, as 64% of the audience was male, meaning that male audiences had a lot to see this weekend, with some picking to see Predator Badlands and others choosing to see The Running Man. So that takes us to number 3, where Predator Badlands made another $13 million in only its second weekend, but dropped a harsh 68% from its opening. And this is not great news for the film at all, as this film dropped more like an R-rated film instead of the PG-13 film that it is. However, the film has still made $66 million domestically and $136 million globally. And it's looking to surpass the highest film of the franchise, which is Alien vs. Predator, which had a final global tally of $177 million. So yes, it's looking very likely that this film will become the biggest Predator film in this franchise's history, but it won't get much higher than that, and the film will likely settle in about the $200 million range. At number 4 was Regretting You, making another $5 million in weekend number 4 and dropping a very healthy 25%. The film has now made $45 million domestically and $83 million globally, with signs of the film passing $100 million worldwide. At number 5 was The Black Phone 2, making another $2.6 million in weekend number 5 and dropping an okay 49%. The film has now made $74 million in the States and $127 million worldwide, meaning that this film won't be able to surpass the original Black Phone film, which made $161 million. At number 6 was Newcomer Keeper, which made $2.5 million in its opening. However, the film received a terrible D+ cinema score, so it will likely fade away from theaters very soon. At number 7 was Nuremberg, making another $2.4 million and dropping a healthy 37% from last weekend. And at number 8 was Sarah's Oil, making another $2.3 million and dropping 45% from last weekend. At number 9 was Begonia, making another $1.6 million and dropping 53%, as the film has made $15 million in the States and $30 million worldwide. And rounding out the top 10 was Chainsaw Man, making $1.6 million and dropping 53%. The film has made $41 million in the States and $161 million worldwide, showing that anime is truly king at the box office. And that wraps up this weekend's box office winners, as we finally saw Lionsgate wake up from a slump. Let me know in the comments what movie, if any, did you see in theaters this weekend. And don't forget to like and subscribe, and tune in next weekend when we finally see the arrival of a huge box office winner, Wicked for Good. And as always, keep watching.